Tiburon real estate market experienced one of the steepest fall-offs in Q3 compared to Q1 and Q2 of 2021 out of every market in Marin County. We basically saw an average price fall-off of over 400K, like almost $500,000. And the time it took to sell a property really started to creep up in Q3, especially as we hit August, September. And the main reason I think that happened was the early pandemic markets, as in Q2 of 2020 through, I would say, the start of Q2 of 2021. Tiburon, Sausalito, Mill Valley, all of these immediate proximity markets to San Francisco were hyper valued in the eyes of and the perception of buyers because it was immediately close to San Francisco. You could escape the high density living that San Francisco had throughout the pandemic, and you could still have immediate access to go back to office whenever we all needed to go back to the office. But with all major tech companies sort of pushing back their back to office dates from September of this year to sort of January, February of 2022, I think what that really did to a market like Tiburon was it created no sense of urgency from buyers. So days on market crept up. People didn't get too competitive in their office, like in their on offer day. People weren't hyper competitive. And a lot of sellers just chose not to accept some of the offers that they were receiving because they were lower than what they anticipated. The market had really peaked in Q2, and I think a lot of seller expectation was it was just going to continue to keep climbing. And then once sort of the tail end of Q3 rolled around, we started to see this significant drop off in value, in buyers' perception of value. The market just slowed down. And I don't think it's all doom and gloom. I think what we've already started to see at the start of October is more listings go into contract, more offers get accepted, more buyers are back floating around and circling. And I think we're in this interesting time where there's a 4 to 6 week window between sort of the end of October and I would say mid-November towards Thanksgiving, where buyer attention, it feels like it's coming back into the market. So if you do need to sell a home, get it on the market now. And if you're a buyer looking for property around here, I think the current market conditions now being so depressed compared to Q2 are really favorable for buying across all price points. And the sort of tail end of this year, sort of post Thanksgiving before the end of the year, whatever listings are actively on the market, from a buyer's perspective, you know that those sellers need to sell. Otherwise, they'd hold their listings and wait until spring 2022. So I think it's a really opportunistic time to buy a home. I think there's a short window to sell a home for top dollar. And ultimately, I think that Tiburon market is just feeling the sort of the fade off after it was so hyper competitive and so overinflated throughout the early pandemic months.